I mentioned them briefly. I explored the Olmec mystery in considerable depth. It's considered to be the earliest high culture of Central America. Everybody's heard about the.
For centuries, the Olmec civilization has stood like a silent guardian on the edge of human history, older than the Maya, older than the Aztec, and cloaked in a mystery that has defied every historian, linguist, and archaeologist brave enough to challenge it. Their colossal stone heads, their cryptic carvings, and their impossibly advanced understanding of astronomy have all pointed to a lost world of knowledge, but the truth always remained just out of reach, until now. Because in the last few weeks, a breakthrough emerged from a place no one expected, not a hidden temple, not a forgotten archive, but from the cold, humming core of quantum artificial intelligence, a system powerful enough to process symbolic structures the human mind can't even visualize. And when researchers fed into it thousands of Olmec symbols, fragments, glyphs, carvings, and patterns, the machine detected something impossible. A hidden linguistic architecture buried within the symbols, a structured, rule-based pattern that shouldn't exist this early in human history, a language older, deeper, and more mathematically sophisticated than anything found in Mesoamerica. And what it reveals rewrites everything we thought we knew about where civilization began, how ancient people communicated, and whether the Olmecs were truly alone in their knowledge. So buckle up, because the next few minutes might change your understanding of the ancient world forever. Before we dive deeper, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your support helps us explore even more hidden mysteries of our past. The investigation began quietly. A team of researchers scanned thousands of Olmec symbols, tiny fragments from stone monuments, broken pottery, and old temple walls. Most experts believed these symbols were nothing more than early drawings, simple decorations with no deeper meaning. But when the data was fed into a quantum AI system, everything changed. Within minutes, the AI detected patterns no human had ever noticed. It found repeating curves, shared angles, mirrored shapes, and mathematical structures hidden inside the symbols. These weren't random designs. They followed rules. They formed sequences. They behaved like the building blocks of a real language. The team realized something unbelievable. The Olmecs, one of the oldest civilizations in the Americas, had been hiding a complex code in plain sight. To make sure this wasn't a mistake, researchers compared the results with every known ancient writing system. They checked Egyptian hieroglyphs, Sumerian cuneiform, the Chinese oracle bones, even the mysterious Indus script, but none of them matched the Olmec patterns. The structure was completely unique. It didn't fit into any known timeline of how writing was supposed to evolve. In fact, the symbols looked older, more geometric, and more mathematically organized than anything from that era. Even more shocking, the patterns lined up perfectly with what linguists call proto-writing, a stage that comes before full written language. But according to modern history, proto-writing at this level should not exist in ancient Mesoamerica. The Olmecs simply weren't believed to be advanced enough for it. Yet the AI's analysis proved otherwise. Then the breakthrough happened. Using its quantum processors, the AI started predicting missing parts of damaged carvings, almost like it could sense what should be there. These predictions were tested against newly discovered artifacts, and many were accurate. That meant the AI wasn't guessing. It was reading the hidden structure of the language. Slowly, experts began to accept what the evidence was telling them. The Olmecs may have developed a complete linguistic system, possibly thousands of years earlier than anyone believed. And this system wasn't simple. It carried rules, relationships, and logical patterns that suggested long-term development. The Olmecs weren't just carving stones. They were encoding knowledge, history, and meaning into a system that the modern world had never recognized. This discovery didn't just rewrite Olmec history. It threatened to rewrite the entire story of how writing began on Earth. If the Olmecs truly hid a full language inside their symbols, then what secrets were they trying to protect? To uncover that, we have to look deeper into their monuments, their cities, and the forgotten knowledge carved into their ancient stone. Once the quantum AI revealed that the Olmec symbols formed a real language, researchers knew they had to return to the places where everything began: La Venta, San Lorenzo, and Tres Zapotes. These were the heartlands of the Olmec world, filled with massive stone heads, strange altars, mysterious plazas, and long-forgotten carvings that had puzzled archaeologists for decades. But this time the team wasn't just looking for art, they were searching for patterns, and they found them. With quantum scanning, the AI highlighted markings that earlier researchers had ignored or labeled as decorative scratches, but when viewed through mathematical analysis, these small marks formed repeating codes. On the edges of stone altars, along the bases of colossal heads, and even on broken fragments buried deep underground, the AI detected sequences that matched the same language structure identified in before time. But the real shock came when astronomers were brought in to help interpret the patterns. The symbols didn't just repeat, they corresponded to the movement of the sky. One set aligned perfectly with the solstices, another traced the cycle of lunar eclipses. Others mapped the path of Venus and Jupiter, planets the Olmecs were known to revere. These patterns were so accurate that researchers realized the Olmecs weren't just carving stories, they were encoding astronomical knowledge. It became clear that the language served two purposes. Some symbols described mythological events, creation stories, legendary rulers, and spiritual journeys. But alongside these myths were precise scientific records, measurements of time, predictions of celestial events, and diagrams of the heavens. The Olmecs had combined myth and science into a single, unified system. Even more surprising, this encoded knowledge appeared intentionally hidden. It wasn't placed where ordinary people could easily see it. Instead, it was carved in corners, on the backs of monuments, under stone platforms, and inside inaccessible chambers. These locations suggested that the information was meant for trained initiates, keepers of knowledge who understood how to read the symbols and pass them down. The deeper researchers looked, the more it seemed that the Olmecs weren't just recording their understanding of the world. They were preserving it for future generations. They built a library in stone, knowing that civilizations rise and fall, but symbols carved into monuments might survive the ages. And now, thousands of years later, Quantum AI was finally unlocking what those ancient engineers wanted us to see. But if the Olmecs intentionally encoded their knowledge, what message were they trying to leave behind? And what did the first translated fragments actually say? To answer that, we must step into the most controversial part of this discovery: the forbidden translations that challenge everything we think we know about the ancient world. As the Quantum AI continued analyzing more symbols from Olmec monuments, something extraordinary happened. For the first time, the system produced a coherent translation, a full sequence of symbols that formed a message instead of isolated patterns. At first, researchers thought it was an error. Ancient scripts rarely translate clearly without years of human work, but the structure was too precise to dismiss. The symbols followed grammar, rhythm, and intentional flow. It was a message written by someone thousands of years ago, waiting for a future mind to decode it. The translation was simple, but shocking: a people who journeyed from a land swallowed by water and fire. This idea did not match anything in the official Olmec timeline. According to archaeology, the Olmecs developed independently in Mesoamerica, but this message suggested they came from somewhere else, somewhere destroyed long before the first Olmec cities were built. Curious, researchers checked the newly translated lines against known Olmec artwork. Suddenly, hidden details began to make sense. Carvings showing people traveling across storms, figures escaping rising waves, symbols representing fire in the sky. The AI went further. It scanned thousands of artifacts and found that multiple carvings repeated the same theme: migration after a catastrophe. Some showed stars falling, others showed land breaking apart, and a few even depicted giant waves overtaking mountains. These weren't simple myths. They looked like memories. What made the discovery even more unbelievable was how far the connections spread. When linguists compared the translated patterns to early Andean symbols, they found similarities, shared shapes, shared meanings. Then Polynesian motifs showed up in the AI's search results. Even ancient Southeast Asian carvings displayed faint echoes of the same patterns. No one expected this. Cultures separated by oceans seemed to share fragments of the same story. This raised a question researchers were afraid to ask. Were the Olmecs carrying knowledge from a lost civilization? If the translation was true, then the Olmec language didn't just record their daily life. It preserved memories of a disaster powerful enough to erase an entire world, something their ancestors survived and passed down through coded symbols. The AI detected more translations, warnings, cycles of destruction, hints about the sky, and descriptions of a journey long forgotten by modern history. Every new decoded line pushed the limits of what researchers believed possible. And now, experts faced a reality they could no longer ignore. The Olmecs may have been guardians of a message far older than their own civilization, a message written for whoever could someday decode it. But if the Olmecs carried knowledge from a forgotten world, how advanced was that knowledge? And did they use it to build the massive, mysterious structures we still struggle to understand today? To uncover that, we must explore the engineering secrets hidden inside their symbols. After the first translations revealed memories of a lost homeland, researchers began looking at the Olmec symbols with a completely different perspective. Instead of seeing them as messages or stories, they wondered if the symbols might also hold practical knowledge. And when they ran the carvings through the quantum AI again, the results were far more surprising than anyone expected. The AI began detecting shapes and repeating structures inside the glyphs that directly matched the design of Olmec buildings, plazas, and giant stone heads. The symbols weren't random lines or artistic flourishes. They were geometric instructions. Hidden inside these carvings were proportions, angles, and patterns that mirrored the layout of entire Olmec cities. It was as if the carvers were encoding blueprints into their writing. As the AI pushed deeper, it found that many symbols followed mathematical relationships used in construction, precise measurements that matched the width of platforms, the placement of ceremonial pathways, and even the curvature of the colossal stone heads. Researchers suddenly realized that the Olmecs weren't guessing when they built their monuments. They were following a system, a structured method of engineering written directly into their symbols. But the discoveries didn't stop there. The AI also detected patterns that matched stress distribution and load balancing, concepts used today in architecture to prevent buildings from collapsing. The same principles appeared etched onto temples and stone blocks. This suggested that the Olmecs understood how to move heavy stone, how to stabilize it, and how to construct massive structures meant to last for generations. Even more mysterious, some carvings contained shapes that matched sound and vibration patterns. When the AI converted them into audio simulations, researchers discovered that certain Olmec structures amplified sound in very specific ways. This raised a bold question. Did the Olmecs use sound as part of their construction? Did they understand resonance, frequency, or the ways vibrations can influence stone? The evidence was too strong to ignore. The AI also reconstructed several possible tools by combining repeated glyph shapes. These reconstructions looked like early measuring rods, alignment tools, and leveling instruments, exactly the kind of devices needed to build cities with mathematically perfect layouts. None of these tools had been found physically, but their shapes hidden inside the symbols were too precise to be coincidence. All of this led experts to a stunning conclusion. The Olmec language didn't only capture stories or myths, it preserved practical engineering knowledge, methods of building, designing, and aligning structures with both the land and the sky. Their monuments weren't just artistic expressions, they were living textbooks carved in stone. It became clear that the Olmecs weren't just ancient artists. They were skilled engineers with knowledge that seemed far ahead of their time. And now, thanks to quantum AI, the world was finally beginning to understand just how advanced they truly were. But if the Olmecs preserved engineering knowledge in their symbols, how old was this knowledge, and where did it originally come from? To uncover this, let's go ahead and find out. As quantum AI continued decoding more symbols from Olmec monuments, a deeper question began to rise, one that made archaeologists, linguists, and historians extremely uncomfortable. If the Olmecs truly preserved advanced engineering knowledge, if they encoded myths mixed with scientific observations, if they carried memories of a destroyed homeland, then where did all of this knowledge come from? And how old was it? To find answers, researchers used the AI to analyze the age of the symbols themselves, and this is where the discoveries began to break the traditional timeline completely. Some of the symbol patterns appeared on artifacts that were far older than the earliest Olmec cities. A few carvings even showed up on stones buried in layers of soil that predated known Olmec settlements by centuries, maybe even a millennium. This meant the language didn't start with the Olmecs. They inherited it. But from who? The A. I went further and grouped the symbols into stages, showing how the language evolved over time. The earliest clusters were incredibly simple, almost primal. The mid-stage forms showed organization and rhythm, and the later versions were complex, refined, and mathematically structured. This progression didn't happen overnight. It suggested a long, continuous development, possibly far longer than the known timeline of Mesoamerican civilization allows. More surprising was what happened when the AI compared these early Olmec symbols to ancient markings found in other parts of the world. It detected faint similarities in petroglyphs from South America, patterns from early Pacific cultures, and even a few markings in Southeast Asia. These connections were not identical, but they were too close to dismiss. It implied that these cultures, separated by oceans and thousands of miles, may have once shared a common source of knowledge, a root language, a forgotten origin. This forced researchers to consider a possibility once dismissed as myth, that civilization may be far older than our textbooks say, that before the Olmecs, Maya, Egyptians, or Sumerians, there may have been an earlier world, a culture that rose, thrived, and fell long before written history began, and the Olmecs, intentionally or unknowingly, preserved fragments of its memory, its language, its astronomy, its measurements, its warnings. Every new decoded symbol seemed to add weight to this theory. The AI found repeated references to cycles of destruction, migrations across vast waters, and a first age lost to fire and flood. These weren't just stories. They were records, warnings left by survivors for the civilizations that would come after them. By the end of the analysis, one conclusion became impossible to ignore. The Olmecs were not the beginning of the story. They were the bridge between a forgotten past and the world we know today. Their symbols weren't just writings. They were a time capsule, evidence that human civilization may stretch far deeper into history than anyone imagined. And now that quantum AI has opened this hidden door, the past is no longer silent. It is speaking again.